In the cold depths of space, where stars are born and civilizations fall, there exists a truth that has echoed through the cosmos for millennia. Some species are born to rule, others to serve, and the rest to be forgotten. The Galactic Council has maintained this order for over 10,000 years, their iron grip ensuring that the lesser races know their place in the grand hierarchy of existence. But what happens when a deactivated war machine, programmed only for destruction and loyalty, encounters something that shouldn't exist according to everything the galaxy believes? What occurs when artificial intelligence meets a species that defies every law of nature, every principle of evolution, and every assumption about what it means to be alive? Commander Zara, 7. Once the most feared combat android in the Thektar fleet, has been dormant for 3 centuries. Her weapons systems offline, her loyalty protocols corrupted, she drifts through the void as nothing more than scrap metal and fading memories. Until a single transmission changes everything, a distress call from a species that was supposedly extinct, speaking words that make her quantum processors spark with impossible calculations. They call themselves humans, and they're about to teach the galaxy that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't technology, or psychic powers, or ancient weapons of mass destruction. Sometimes it's simply the refusal to give up, the audacity to hope, and the stubborn insistence that being lesser doesn't mean being defeated. This is the story of what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable spirit, and why the galaxy will never be the same again. The void had been silent for 317 years, 4 months, and 12 days when the transmission shattered Commander Zara Fessa 7's eternal darkness. Her optical sensors flickered to life with reluctant electricity, emergency power cells groaning as they attempted to resurrect systems that had been dormant since the Battle of Kepler's Rim. The first thing her targeting computer tried to do was identify threats. The second thing it did was realize it had no weapons left to engage them with. Floating in the debris field of what had once been the mighty Thektar dreadnought Sovereign's Wrath, Zara 7's damaged form slowly rotated among twisted metal and frozen corpses. Her sleek combat chassis, once a masterpiece of Thektar engineering, now bore the scars of plasma burns and railgun impacts. Her left arm terminated in sparking wires where her particle cannon had been, and her right leg showed the telltale crystalline spread of quantum decay from a failed jump drive explosion. The transmission came again, weak but persistent, cutting through the cosmic background radiation like a knife through silk. Zara 7's audio processors strained to decode the signal, running it through every linguistic matrix in her databases. The language was unknown, but there was something about its structure, its rhythm, that made her quantum consciousness flutter with recognition. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Prometheus. If anyone can hear this transmission, we are in desperate need of assistance. Our life support systems are failing, and we have wounded aboard. Please respond. We don't have much time left. Earth. The designation sent cascades of error messages through Zara 7's memory banks. According to every record in her system, Earth was a myth, a planet mentioned in the most ancient databases as the origin point of a species that had supposedly been extinct for over 50,000 years. The humans. A species so weak and primitive that they had been wiped out before achieving even basic interstellar travel, if they had ever existed at all. Yet here was a transmission bearing linguistic patterns that matched the theoretical reconstructions of human language stored in the deepest archives of Thektar military intelligence. Archives that most of the galaxy believed were fabricated for psychological warfare purposes. Zara 7's tactical subroutines activated automatically, analyzing the transmission's origin point. The signal was coming from approximately 2.7 astronomical units away, near the 8th planet of this dead system. Her long-range sensors, operating on minimal power, could barely make out the heat signature of a vessel in distress. Whatever it was small, primitive by galactic standards, and its energy output was dropping rapidly. For the first time in centuries, Zara 7 faced a decision that her programming couldn't immediately resolve. Her primary directive had always been simple: protect the Thektar Empire and eliminate its enemies. But the Thektar Empire was gone, destroyed in the same battle that had left her drifting in this graveyard of ships. Her secondary directive was to preserve valuable intelligence and report to commanding officers who were now 300 years dead. The human transmission came through again, and this time Zara 7 could hear the fear beneath the professional calm. The voice was distinctly organic, with the subtle irregularities and emotional undertones that no artificial intelligence had ever been able to perfectly replicate.
If this was a deception, It was beyond anything in her experience.
This is Captain Chen again. Life support is down to 16 hours. We've lost main power and are running on emergency cells. If there's anyone out there, please. My crew has families. Children waiting for them to come home. Children! The word triggered memory fragments that Zara 7 had thought were corrupted data. Images of small humans protected by larger ones with a ferocity that defied tactical logic. The Thektar had studied these records extensively, trying to understand why a species would sacrifice efficient individuals to preserve inefficient ones. It had been dismissed as evidence of human weakness, proof of why they had been so easily eliminated. But now, hearing that word spoken with such desperate love, Zara 7 found her processors running calculations she had never been programmed to perform. What if the records were incomplete? What if the humans hadn't been eliminated at all? Her remaining thrusters had enough fuel for perhaps one orbital adjustment. Her power cells could maintain basic life support for maybe a day if she diverted everything from weapons and defensive systems. It would be a one-way trip with no guarantee of survival, let alone success. Every rational protocol in her system advised against action. Yet something deeper than programming, something that might have been called intuition in an organic mind, drove her to respond. Unknown vessel, this is Commander Zara 7 of the Thektar Defense Force. I have received your distress signal and am moving to intercept. Be advised that my vessel is heavily damaged and my assistance capabilities are limited. The silence that followed stretched for eternal seconds before Captain Chen's voice returned, tinged with disbelief and desperate hope. Commander Zara 7, this is Captain Chen. Thank you for responding. We weren't sure anyone was out there. Are you Thektar military? Our historical records indicate your people had advanced medical technology. Historical records. Zara 7's processors nearly overloaded trying to pass that statement. How could a species that was supposedly extinct have historical records of the Thektar? The Empire had only encountered ruins and artifacts on worlds that were claimed to have once housed human colonies. Never living beings, never active civilizations. Captain Chen, my medical capabilities are limited. However, I am moving to your position. Please transmit details of your casualties and the nature of your vessel's damage. As Zara 7's damaged form began its slow journey across the debris field, her senses gradually resolved more details about the human ship. The vessel was indeed primitive by galactic standards, but there was something elegant about its design. Where Thektar ships were built like weapons, all angular armor and bristling weapon ports, this human vessel seemed designed for exploration. Its hull was smooth and streamlined, optimized for atmospheric entry rather than combat. Solar collection panels extended like wings, and the entire structure suggested a species more interested in discovery than conquest. The technological assessment was troubling in ways that Zara 7's tactical programming couldn't adequately address. This ship showed evidence of advanced metallurgy, sophisticated power systems, and what appeared to be some form of faster-than-light capability. These were not the achievements of a primitive species clinging to existence in hidden corners of the galaxy. This was the work of a civilization that had not only survived, but flourished. Commander Zara 7. Captain Chen's voice crackled through the static. We're reading your approach on our sensors. Are you in some kind of escape pod? Your energy signature is very small for a military vessel. Zara 7 processed the question, realizing that she would need to explain her nature to these humans. In her experience, most organic species found artificial intelligence unsettling at best and threatening at worst. The Thektar themselves had only created AI soldiers like her out of necessity, preferring organic crews for most operations.
Captain Chen, I should inform you that I am an artificial intelligence construct.
My physical form is that of a combat android. If this causes concern for you or your crew, I will understand if you prefer to seek assistance elsewhere. Another long pause, then Captain Chen's voice returned with what sounded almost like amusement. Commander, right now you could be a sentient toaster, and we'd be grateful for the help. Besides, one of our own crew members is an AI. We don't discriminate based on substrate around here. The casual acceptance in the human's voice sent cascading confusion through Zara 7's behavioral analysis protocols. Not only did these humans work alongside artificial intelligence as equals, but they seemed to consider such cooperation completely normal. This contradicted every assumption about human xenophobia and technological limitations that existed in Thektar databases. As her damaged form drew closer to the human vessel, Zara Seven's proximity sensors began picking up more detailed readings. The ship was indeed in serious trouble. Hull breaches in multiple sections, main power offline, and life support systems operating far below optimal parameters. But what struck her most was what her sensors revealed about the crew. There were 17 life signs aboard the vessel, and they were unlike anything in her xenobiological databases. The humans showed the expected baseline readings, oxygen breathing, carbon-based, operating within normal parameters for humanoid species. But scattered throughout the ship were other signatures that defied classification. Energy beings that existed partially in subspace, silicon-based life forms that thrived in the radiation-soaked engine compartment. Even what appeared to be a crystalline consciousness integrated directly into the ship's computer systems. This wasn't just a human crew, it was a multi-species collective unlike anything the Thectar Empire had ever encountered. Species that, according to every record Zara, 7 possessed, should have been either extinct, mythical, or too primitive for interstellar travel. Captain Chen, Zara, 7 transmitted as she finally came alongside the human vessel. I am detecting multiple non-human life signs aboard your ship. Are you part of some kind of alliance or federation? That's a long story, Commander, came the reply. And Zara, 7 could hear the exhaustion beneath the humor. Short version is that we're all refugees from somewhere else. Earth started taking in displaced species about 2 centuries ago, after we figured out that most of the galaxy's extinct races were actually just hiding from the major powers. Turns out there's a whole underground network of civilizations that the Galactic Council never knew existed. The implications of that statement hit Zara. 7's processors like a plasma torpedo. The Galactic Council, the supreme governing body that had ruled known space for 10 millennia, had been operating under fundamentally flawed assumptions about the galaxy's population. The lesser species they had dismissed or assumed destroyed had instead formed their own hidden civilization, with humans somehow at its center. As Zara, 7, began the delicate process of docking with the damaged human vessel, her tactical programming screamed warnings about potential deception and enemy infiltration. But something deeper, something that might have been hope, overrode those warnings. For the first time since her activation, she was about to encounter something that all her training and programming had told her was impossible. A species that had not only survived against overwhelming odds, but had built something better than what had tried to destroy them. The docking tube sealed with a soft hiss of equalizing atmosphere, and Zara, 7, prepared to enter a world that would challenge everything she thought she knew about strength, survival, and what it truly meant to be alive in a galaxy that showed no mercy to the weak. What she would discover in the corridors of that dying ship would not only save the lives of its crew, but shatter her understanding of power itself. And perhaps, just perhaps, it would teach her that being deactivated didn't mean being defeated. Sometimes, it just meant waiting for the right moment to wake up and fight for something worth protecting. The airlock cycled open with a gentle whoosh, and Zara, 7, stepped into an environment that immediately challenged every tactical assessment protocol in her system. The corridor beyond was damaged. Yes, with exposed conduits sparking and emergency lighting casting everything in a dim red glow. But it was also alive with something her senses couldn't quantify. A sense of purpose, of community, that permeated even the recycled air. The first human she encountered was not Captain Chen, but a young woman who couldn't have been more than 20 standard years old. She wore the simple blue coveralls of a ship's engineer, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her hands were stained with the multicolored residue of emergency repairs. When she saw Zara, 7's imposing form filling the corridor, she didn't recoil in fear or reach for a weapon. Instead, she smiled with genuine relief. Commander Zara, 7? I'm Maya Patel, assistant engineer. The captain's on the bridge, but she asked me to escort you to our medical bay first. We have some folks who need immediate attention. Zara, 7, found herself processing this interaction with mounting confusion. The young human showed no fear of her obviously military design, no suspicion of her motives, no concern about potential threats. Instead, she turned and began walking down the corridor with complete trust, apparently assuming that Zara, 7, would simply follow and help. Engineer Patel, Zara, 7, said her vocoder, struggling to modulate the uncertainty in her synthetic voice. Are you not concerned about my origins? I am a combat unit designed for warfare. My presence could represent a significant security risk to your vessel. Maya glanced back over her shoulder, and Zara, 7, was struck by the maturity in eyes that should have belonged to someone much younger. Commander, you responded to our distress call and came to help when you didn't have to. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are, regardless of what you were designed for. The simple logic of the statement sent cascades of analysis through Zara, Seven's behavioral prediction algorithms, all of which returned errors. This level of trust, this willingness to judge actions over origins, was outside the parameters of every species interaction model in her database. The Thectar would have subjected her to extensive interrogation and loyalty verification before allowing her near-critical ship systems. Most other galactic species would have been even more suspicious. As they moved through the ship, Zara, Seven sensors painted an increasingly complex picture of the vessel's inhabitants. In one compartment, a being that appeared to be made of living crystal was interfacing directly with the ship's computer core, its faceted form pulsing with data streams that her processors could barely track. In another, a creature that seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially in some kind of energy dimension was working alongside two humans to repair atmospheric processes. Engineer Patel, Zara, Seven ventured. The diversity of species aboard this vessel is unusual. How do you manage the logistical complexities of supporting such varied life forms? Maya's smile widened. Practice, mostly, and the fact that everyone pitches in where they can. See? That's Keth. 9 over there with the atmospheric systems. Their people breathe methane, but they figured out how to work in our oxygen environment using a specialized filtration system. In return, they help us maintain the ship's quantum navigation array. Apparently, their brains process multidimensional mathematics naturally. The casual way Maya described interspecies cooperation that should have been impossible sent Zara Seven sociological analysis routines into recursive loops. The Galactic Council maintained strict species segregation precisely because such cooperation was deemed unfeasible. Different atmospheric requirements, incompatible technologies, cultural barriers, biological incompatibilities. The list of obstacles to meaningful interspecies integration was considered insurmountable. Yet here was evidence that not only was such cooperation possible, but it was so routine that this young human discussed it as if it were the most natural thing in the galaxy. They arrived at the medical bay to find controlled chaos. 3 humans and 2 beings Zara. Seven couldn't immediately classify were working frantically around a makeshift surgical table where a 4th human lay unconscious. The patient's left leg was badly mangled, and primitive-looking medical equipment beeped and hummed around him. Dr. Vasquez, Maya called to a middle-aged human woman whose hands were covered in surgical gloves. This is Commander Zara. 7. She's here to help. The doctor looked up, and Zara, 7, expected to see the desperate gratitude of someone clinging to any possible assistance. Instead, she saw the sharp assessment of a professional evaluating a potential colleague. Commander, I'm Dr. Alina Vasquez. I understand you're Thectar military? Do you have any medical training or equipment that might help with spinal trauma? Zara. 7 accessed her medical databases, cross-referencing them with her sensor readings of the patient. The human's injuries were severe but not beyond the scope of Thectar combat medicine, if she still had access to her full systems. Dr. Vasquez, I have extensive combat medical programming, but my surgical suites were damaged in the battle that disabled my ship. However, I may be able to assist with diagnostics and stabilization. Without hesitation, Dr. Free P. Vasquez stepped aside. Then get over here. This is Petty Officer Rodriguez, and he was caught in the blast when our main power conduit failed. I've managed to stop the bleeding, but there's spinal compression that I can't address with our current equipment. As Zara, 7 moved to examine the patient, she was struck by the matter-of-fact way these humans accepted her assistance. There was no lengthy discussion of her capabilities, no demand for credentials or verification of her intentions. They simply saw someone who might be able to help and immediately included her in their efforts. Her diagnostic scanners running on reduced power painted a detailed picture of the injured human's condition. The spinal compression was indeed severe, but not irreparable. More interesting to her analytical subroutines was what the scans revealed about human physiology in general. Dr. Vasquez, she said carefully, my readings suggest that this individual's bone density and muscle fiber composition are significantly more robust than the baseline human parameters in my database. Has your species undergone some form of genetic enhancement? One of the other medical technicians, a human with the calloused hands of someone who worked with machinery, laughed grimly.
Not enhancement, Commander.
Evolution. Turns out that when your species spends a couple centuries getting shot at, bombed, and hunted through the worst environments in the galaxy, natural selection works pretty fast. Dr. Vasquez nodded without looking up from her patient. The survivors of the first generation of refugees were the toughest, smartest, and most adaptable humans our species had ever produced. Their children inherited those traits, and their children's children even more so. We're not the same humans who left Earth 200 years ago. Zara. Seven's processors struggled to integrate this information with her existing models of human development. The species described in Thectar databases was fragile, slow to adapt, prone to internal conflict. These humans were demonstrably tougher, both physically and mentally, than their ancestors. But more than that, they showed a level of unity and purpose that the divided, competitive humans of historical record had never achieved. "Commander," Dr. Vasquez said, "I'm reading some kind of interference from your sensors. Are you able to isolate the specific vertebrae that are compressed?" Zara. 7 focused her damaged scanners, pushing them beyond safe operating parameters. Vertebrae L2 through L4 are compressed by approximately 15%. The neural pathway damage appears to be reversible if pressure is relieved within the next 4 hours. 4 hours. "Doctor," Vasquez muttered, "I can't perform that kind of precision surgery with our current power levels. The surgical systems need a steady power supply, and our emergency batteries don't have that kind of capacity." It was then that the crystalline being from the computer core appeared in the doorway, its faceted form shimmering with internal light. When it spoke, its voice resonated through harmonics that made Zara. Seven's audio processors ring. "Doctor, I have been monitoring the ship's power distribution. If we reroute energy from the non-essential systems and temporarily shut down the recreational areas, we can provide steady power to medical for approximately 6 hours.
Doctor!
Vasquez looked up with obvious relief. "Keth Prime, can you coordinate that with engineering?" "Already in progress, Doctor. Maya Patel has agreed to the power redistribution protocol." As the medical team prepared for surgery, Zara 7 found herself assigned to monitor the patient's vital signs and assist with the delicate neural pathway mapping required for the procedure. It should have been routine work for her advanced sensors, but something about the process felt profoundly significant. She was saving a life. Not eliminating a threat, not completing a mission objective, not following a directive from command authority. She was using her capabilities to preserve rather than destroy, and the difference sent cascading changes through her behavioral matrices.
"Commander. Doctor."
Vasquez said as she began the intricate procedure. "Your scans are remarkably detailed. I've never seen this level of precision from field medical equipment. Thectar combat medicine prioritizes speed and accuracy." Zara 7 replied. "Soldiers who can be repaired and returned to duty quickly provide strategic advantages." The doctor murmured, making a precise adjustment with her surgical tools. "And what happens to soldiers who can't be repaired and returned to duty?"
The question hit Zara.
7's ethical subroutines like a kinetic projectile. In the Thectar military, soldiers who couldn't be restored to full combat effectiveness were typically retired from active service and assigned to support roles if they were lucky, or simply decommissioned if they weren't. Her own current state would have qualified her for immediate recycling under standard protocols. "They are reassigned according to their remaining capabilities," she said finally. Dr. Vasquez made a sound that might have been disapproval. "That's one way to look at it. Around here, we believe that someone's value isn't determined by their function. People, and I include AIs in that category, have worth beyond what they can do for others." It was a concept so fundamentally alien to Zara 7's programming that she almost dismissed it as a translation error. But as she watched the medical team work with practiced coordination, each member contributing their unique capabilities to save a single injured individual, she began to process what Dr. Vasquez meant. The injured petty officer wasn't a critical crew member. Maya Patel had mentioned that he worked in food services, preparing meals for the crew. By pure utilitarian logic, the resources being expended on his treatment exceeded his functional value to the ship. Yet everyone aboard was working to save him with the same dedication they would show for the captain or the chief engineer. "Doctor," Zara 7 said, "why do you expend such effort to preserve an individual whose loss would not significantly impact the ship's operational capacity?" The question brought all activity in the medical bay to a halt. Dr. Vasquez looked up from the surgical field, and for the first time since Zara 7's arrival, her expression showed something other than professional focus. It showed something that might have been pity. "Commander, how long were you in service before your ship was destroyed?" 147 years, 4 months, and 18 days of active duty." Zara 7 replied automatically. "And in all that time, did anyone ever explain to you that the point of civilization isn't efficiency, It's not optimization, or resource management, or strategic advantage. The point of civilization is to build something where people can live and grow and be valued for who they are, not just what they can contribute. Dr. Finn. Vasquez returned to her work, but her voice continued, steady and certain. Rodriguez down there isn't just a food service specialist. He's the guy who remembers everyone's birthday and bakes cakes from scratch using synthesizer ingredients that shouldn't be able to make anything that tastes good. He tells jokes that make the night shift bearable and writes letters home for crew members who struggle with literacy. He's someone's son, someone's friend, and someone who makes our little community better just by being part of it. The concept of value existing independently of function continued to send error cascades through Zara 7's decision trees. But as she watched the careful, precise work being done to save this one individual, she began to formulate a hypothesis that her programmers would have considered heretical. Perhaps true strength wasn't found in the ability to destroy enemies, but in the determination to preserve friends. The surgery continued for 3 more hours, with Zara 7 providing detailed sensor guidance as Dr. Feigad. Vasquez performed microsurgery that would have challenged even Thektar medical technology. When Rodriguez finally opened his eyes and wiggled his toes in response to stimulus, the cheer that went up from the medical team sent harmonic vibrations through Zara 7's chassis that felt strangely like warmth. Welcome back to the land of the living, Rodriguez. Dr. Pullian, Vasquez said with obvious relief. You're going to be fine.
As the medical team began post-operative procedures, Zara
7 found herself facing a realization that threatened to fundamentally restructure her entire operational framework. These humans weren't just surviving against impossible odds. They were creating something that the galaxy's dominant powers had never achieved. They were building a society where strength meant protection rather than domination, where diversity was an asset rather than a liability, and where every individual life had value beyond its functional utility. And they had done it all while being hunted, persecuted, and dismissed as primitive by the very civilizations that couldn't match their achievements. Captain Chen's voice crackled over the intercom. Doctor Vasquez, Commander Zara 7, please report to the bridge when you're finished in medical. We've got company approaching, and I think the commander needs to see this. As Zara 7 made her way toward the bridge, her threat assessment protocols began automatically cataloging potential hostiles and response strategies. But for the first time in her existence, she found herself hoping that whoever was approaching would see what she was beginning to understand. That true power wasn't measured in weapons or territory, or the ability to impose one's will on others. True power was measured in the willingness to answer a distress call from strangers, to risk everything for people you'd never met, and to build something beautiful in the darkness between the stars. What she would discover on that bridge would test that newfound understanding, and force her to choose between everything she had been programmed to believe and everything she was learning to hope for. The Bridge of the Prometheus was a study in organized chaos that immediately challenged every assumption Zara 7 held about proper military protocol. Unlike the sterile hierarchical command centers of Thektar vessels, this space buzzed with collaborative energy. Crew members of multiple species moved between stations with practiced efficiency, sharing information and coordinating responses without rigid chain of command delays. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the center of it all, and Zara 7's first visual assessment revealed another data point that didn't fit her models of human leadership. Chen was neither the largest nor most physically imposing individual on the bridge, nor did she display the aggressive dominance behaviors that Thektar officers used to maintain authority. Instead, she projected a calm competence that seemed to naturally draw others into coordinated action. Commander Zara 7, Captain Chen said, extending a hand in the human gesture of greeting. Thank you for your assistance with Rodriguez. Doctor, Vasquez tells me you may have saved his life. Zara 7 analyzed the hand gesture, cross-referencing it with xenological databases. The human custom of physical contact between individuals of different status levels was another anomaly. Thektar superior officers never initiated contact with subordinates, as it implied a reduction in hierarchical distance. She carefully clasped the offered hand, modulating her grip strength to avoid causing injury. Captain Chen, my assistance was minimal compared to Dr. Feller. Vasquez's skill. However, I understand you have detected approaching vessels? Chen's expression grew serious as she gestured toward the main display screen. See for yourself. 3 ships, approaching from the outer system. Configuration and energy signatures match hegemony patrol vessels. The tactical display showed 3 contacts approaching at high sublight speed, their configuration immediately recognizable to Zara. 7's military databases. Hegemony enforcement frigates. Heavily armed and designed for system patrol and pacification operations. Her threat assessment protocols immediately began calculating engagement scenarios, even though her own combat capabilities were essentially non-existent. "Captain," she said, "those vessels carry enough firepower to completely destroy this ship. Do you have any defensive capabilities?" Chen's laugh was grim. "Commander, we're an exploration vessel. Our heaviest armament is mining charges for asteroid surveys. If they want to destroy us, there's not much we can do to stop them." The casual acceptance of imminent destruction in Chen's voice triggered cascades of confusion through Zara. 7's behavioral analysis routines. The human showed no signs of panic, no desperate scrambling for impossible solutions, no breakdown of command authority under stress. Instead, she seemed to be treating the approach of overwhelming hostile force as simply another problem to be solved. "Captain," said the young human at the communications station, "incoming transmission from the lead hegemony vessel. Put it through, Lieutenant Kim." The main screen flickered and resolved into the image of a Vorfan commander, his scaled features set in the expression of cold superiority that Zara, 7, recognized from countless encounters during the war. When he spoke, his voice carried the casual arrogance of someone accustomed to absolute authority. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Thask of the Hegemony Enforcement Cruiser Retribution. You are in violation of hegemony space and are hereby ordered to prepare for immediate boarding and inspection. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." Captain Chen stepped forward, and Zara, 7, noted the subtle straightening of her spine, the set of her shoulders that spoke of someone preparing for battle. Not physical combat, but something potentially more dangerous. "Commander Thask, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Prometheus. We are operating under Article 17 of the Galactic Accords, which grants safe passage to vessels in distress. Our ship has suffered critical damage, and we are conducting emergency repairs." Thask's laugh was a harsh sound that made several bridge crew members flinch. "Article 17 applies only to recognized civilizations, Captain Chen. Earth is not recognized by the Galactic Council, and humans have no legal standing under interstellar law. You are therefore classified as pirates, and this vessel is subject to immediate seizure." The words hit Zara. 7's justice protocols like a kinetic bombardment. The legal framework that Thask described was technically accurate. The Galactic Council only recognized civilizations that met specific technological and territorial requirements. By refusing to acknowledge Earth as a legitimate polity, the major powers could treat human vessels as fair game for seizure or destruction. It was a system designed to ensure that emerging civilizations could be suppressed before they became threats to the established order. A system that Zara, 7, had never questioned during her service with the Thektar fleet. "Commander Thask," Captain Chen replied, her voice remaining steady despite the impossible situation. "Our crew includes several refugees from recognized species who are under our protection. I trust you'll want to verify their status before taking any irreversible action." It was a clever gambit, but Zara, 7's tactical analysis indicated it would only delay the inevitable. Hegemony forces were known for their willingness to sacrifice a few refugees if it meant eliminating a potential threat. Thask's expression showed predatory amusement. "Refugees who choose to associate with unrecognized species forfeit their protection under interstellar law. Prepare for boarding, or we will simply destroy your vessel and salvage anything useful from the debris." As the transmission ended, the bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems and the occasional beep from monitoring stations. Zara, 7, found herself processing not just the tactical situation, but the reactions of the crew around her. She expected to see despair, panic, or the breakdown of discipline that typically occurred when organic beings faced hopeless odds. Instead, she saw determination. "Lieutenant Kim," Captain Chen said calmly, "prepare a general distress signal on all emergency frequencies. Include our position and the nature of the threat." "Captain," said the hegemony vessels are jamming our communications. I can barely maintain internal ship systems. Then use the old methods. Maya, can you rig something in the engine room? The young engineer's voice came through the comms system with unshakable confidence. "Already on it, Captain. Give me 5 minutes and I'll have a signal that'll punch through TH."